So I was talking to Chuck the other day about, well, we talk all the time about, current trends and cinema. And we were talking about The Creator because, they shot The Creator on the FX3 and the Ronin RS2 or something like that, like the small Ronin. And so we were talking about movement. Well, it got me thinking about like how we've utilized movement in our films, or a lack of movement. I feel like movement is one of the most effective tools for bringing your audience into the scene. However, I think where a lot of us go wrong today is we move the camera too much and too often. So much so to the point that when you do move the camera in every scene, when it gets to that pivotal scene and you decide to move it, it don't matter no more. It's not as effective. So I think back to The Godfather. Michael, he goes to explain his plan. And as he's explaining, Francis Ford Coppola had this he was just really good in his prime at like just these slow, methodical push-ins. And as Michael's explaining, it's just a slow dolly in that it's like you really don't even see it, but you feel it. You get to the end of the monologue and you're tighter and you're like, why do I feel like he said that to me? But you feel like he said it to you because it's the camera's subtly moving closer and it's bringing you as the viewer closer to him. And so it got me thinking like, okay, how do we move? How do we usually use the camera? And I can go through a few different films that we did, like You Better Run. We did that back in 2017. I remember when I was talking to Jeremy Brockman about how we wanted to film it. Our main character's name was Mortimer. He doesn't have a lot of power. The main antagonist's name was Guru. He has all of the power in the film and like in the ecosystem of the story. He's like essentially a cult leader. I wrote on my script, whenever Guru moves, the camera moves. So the film is primarily locked off, but every time Guru moves, the camera it follows him. It's like he's controlling the world, this little kind of small world that we created. We did Little Church, another film where we primarily locked things off. The way I explained it to Jeremy when we were creating Little Church or creating the visual philosophy for Little Church was whenever Michael is walking and we see him walking, the camera's behind him and it's like he's walking through a dark cave. So it's the opening shot in Little Church where it's tracking behind him and the title card comes on. It's like he's walking through the cave. Those first two times we track him, we're behind him. He's walking through the darkness. He's walking through the darkness because of the nature of the story. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. When he's coming back towards his father's office to meet with his dad, he's walking towards the camera and it feels different because he's not behind him anymore because he's getting closer to the light. As I said earlier, it's also important to sometimes not move the camera, i.e. in a sentimental mood. And the beauty of not moving the camera is that you can focus solely on composition and make every single frame as intentional as it needs to be. There's a moment in I Wish I Can See Heaven where our main character is in his car and he's having like this very emotional moment and the camera doesn't move. However, it's slow, similar to Michael with talking to Tessie on Sonny and Tom and Clemenza. It slowly moves in. And everybody who's seen a screener of the film so far has, when that scene comes on, they're like, because by the end of it's like a medium, but by the end of it, it's like a very tight shot, like here. And everybody's always like, man, what? That was intense. Because we don't cut. Like you have to be there with him. And so you can use a lack of movement with the camera to bring your audience, closer, or even intensify a moment. Just holding a shot right there. And honestly, we did the same thing at the end of In the Sentimental Mood, where Don's last monologue, where he's talking to, we'll say Deborah's character, and it's a slow zoom in as he's doing his monologue. You don't necessarily see it because it's always very subtle, because I always make it as subtle as possible, but you feel it. Gimbals, dollies, steady cams, they're all tools. Just learn how to use them and learn what works for your style of storytelling, and do what feels right to you. There's no right way, and you'll be okay.